Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Helt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Tom Blottenberger, and he is the founder and CEO of Paradigm Shift Financial. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Sure. So, Tom, what got you into the financial arena?
God, how much time we got, Gary? Short version of that story is I got into the industry because I watched my family go through some difficult financial times when my grandfather went in. My grandfather went in for a surgery. It didn't go well. He ended up in a coma for 9 months back in 2009, and he passed away. And I got to watch what happens when things are not handled well.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, this is an area that, if I could save other people from experiencing what my family's experiencing, I want to help them do that. And so I switched my focus. I was already kind of in finance, at least doing the business school. So I switched my focus to financial advising and planning. I came out of college with the CFP designation already passed.
Okay.
And I started to interview different companies. I interviewed about 23 different ones. I picked the one I ended up working with because I thought they were the best of the options. And then, long story short, on that, about 8 years into working in that company, I started to realize that I started to see the little cracks forming in the philosophy and the mindset. And then I discovered that there was actually a science to designing investment strategies. I brought that back to that firm, wanting to teach people.
Mm-hmm.
We were predominantly an insurance firm, and I got told, well, Thomas, if you teach people that there's a science to this stuff, so they're not worried about it, they won't buy your insurance products. And I went, oh, crap, okay. And so that's when I started Paradigm Shift Financial. That was in 2018, and been running it since.
So what makes Paradigm different from other advising firms?
I would say the two major things that make it different are, on one hand, we are really focused on what makes people tick and the way that they think about money. Most people don't realize that they're trying to plan and they're trying to develop strategies for their money out of a fear of losing it, out of scarcity around it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you design a plan out of scarcity, what do you think you generally get?
Scarcity.
More scarcity. Exactly. And so it's like, and what that looks like is, I'll give you an example. When I ask people what they want in life, a lot of times what they'll give me is what they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you want in life? Oh, I don't want to go broke. I don't want to be a burden to my family. I don't want to take this business success I'm having and just, squander the resources I'm actually generating. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing with me what you don't want. What do you actually want? And people have a lot harder time with that because we're not conditioned to think that way. But if you start to look at it, there's a whole world of difference between I don't want to be broke and I want to be wealthy. And the actions and the decisions people would take inside of both of those are drastically different. So that's the first piece, is I'm not interested in what people's goals are if they're operating out of what they don't want. I hold the space that people are capable of greatness, and that in order to get that, we have to focus on what you want. That's not what most financial advisors do.
Sure.
The second piece is when it comes to passively managing the wealth and the resources that get generated from active activities like real estate, business, etc. There's actually economic and Nobel Prize winning science around how you design those kinds of investments and those kinds of holdings to produce the best or the most amount of wealth with the least amount of risk. And again, most financial advisors aren't teaching that. So you got someone who works with the financial advisor, operating out of scarcity, creates a scarcity plan, generates revenue, puts that revenue into an investment strategy that's gambling and speculating with money with no tested process, loses it all, Oh, lo and behold, more scarcity occurs.
Right.
So that's the basis of what makes us different is I actually train people how to think out of abundance and support them through my own trials and errors
Hmm.
in how to, shortcut that path. And then we pair that mentality with the most scientifically valid passive investing that you can possibly do so that all the money that they're putting into it, they know will work.
Right. Because I mean, I guess that in lots of ways that makes sense, in the fact that it's like, okay, if I'm telling you what I want as compared to what I don't want. So if you're going on the premise of what I don't want, then you could still put me in something that I may not be happy with, but I didn't tell you I didn't want that. So, there's that I'm going to say that vicious cycle. So I think, and you're right. I mean, many times, people don't know what they want is what it comes down
Yes.
to. And like you said, it's like, they can certainly tell us what they don't want, but telling us what they want, is a little bit more difficult. Because in lots of ways that makes you more of a coach in my eyes about some of this
Yes.
stuff. So how do you coach them? Because again, I'm sure you sit down with somebody and then they start and you say, oh, they're going to struggle with that. So how do you help them overcome that struggle that they're having to actually tell you what they truly want?
Well, yeah, it's a great question.
I come up with
The
them every once
the
in a while.
yeah, no, I love it. It's great. The best part or the um sorry, I'm getting a delivery at the moment. Thank you. It's very sweet of you. This is one of the dynamics of working from a home office or even the design like this is I get care packages every once
Right.
in a while.
There you
Any
go.
business owner that works from home should design care package strategies. Right?
There you go.
Oh no, okay. So to answer your question, um, the the first place we start is actually helping. So I distinguish the difference between coaching and training. Coaching is being curious, asking questions.
Hmm.
And training is starting to give people insight, like actually telling them sometimes things they don't want to hear, such that it makes a difference for them. And so, in the coaching space of being curious, I'm usually asking questions. Like if someone comes in and says, "Well, I don't want this." Okay, got it. Well, tell me why you don't want that. Well, I don't want it because of X, Y, Z. Okay,
Hmm.
how long have you been trying to avoid that? Well, I've been trying to avoid this for the last 10 years of my business. Okay, and what have you noticed has come from that? Like when you try to hire staff out of that, what occurs? Well, we have a really high turnover.
Right.
Okay. Well, and what about your relationship with your family? When you're operating out of this mindset of what you don't want, how do you show up with your kids and your wife? Well, how's that relevant? Well, it's incredibly relevant, right? Because the whole point of having a business is ideally is that you eventually have more freedom and you can be more present. But if you don't have that, you're not getting that, then what's the point?
Right.
And so start to do the looking at where people can start to see that operating out of what they don't want has been the source of a lot of their struggle to begin with. And then you start to ask them, what do they want? And that it just starts to open things up. So like someone who says like, yeah, I don't want a high turnover rate. Well, what do you want? Well, I want employees that feel valued and that are loyal to the team. Well, got it. Well, what strategies do you have in place that actually allow your employees to experience that?
Right.
Well, nothing. Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's a place to go to work then.
Sure.
Maybe that's now something to deal with. Whereas if I'm dealing with, I just don't want high turnover. Well, good luck. How do you manage for that?
Right. Right.
Right. So it's that's just an example of doing the looking. And most of the time, people can come up with what they want. It's usually some positive version of what they don't want. But setting their sights that direction just produces more power, produces more energy, and produces more likelihood of achieving your objectives. Right? If I'm always operating out of what I don't want, that's a negative energy. You can only have so much of that, and
Sure.
it keeps you
Sure.
quagmired.
Yeah,
So
because I
that's
mean,
probably the biggest thing I've noticed.
yeah, because I mean, I gotta look at it and say that if people say that they want something, but they're not taking the actions to get that, then again, I mean, again, you're in this vicious cycle, with that. Um, I guess with this mental designing of financial, strategies and plans for people, what are some of the other mistakes, that you're seeing them make besides, the really not being able to say, what it is that they want?
Yeah, the other mistakes I see people make is when they're so focused on what they don't want, they usually have stifling energy. I don't want to sound like frou-frou, right? But
Right,
there's a reality that there's a limited amount of mental processing energy we have. And I can either put that towards creation or I can put that towards mitigation. And most often people will put it towards downsizing, mitigating,
right,
building the moat around the current castle versus how to build the castle greater, how to expand the castle.
sure,
And so that's the other mistake I see people make. They'll spend, hours trying to figure out how to save a couple of bucks on taxes versus paying the money to hire someone to do it for them while they go out and create more income.
right,
Right. And it's like those are the small mistakes people make that they don't realize they're operating out of scarcity around. It is scarcity, let's be frank. If your hourly rate as a business owner is $400 an hour or $1,000 an hour, and you're taking on an activity you don't like because you're trying to save 10 bucks an hour,
right.
that's scarcity. You should be
Yeah.
outsourcing that.
Right, right. I think that, I mean, and we've had a couple of episodes where we've talked about outsourcing and why it's really important to look at it, especially if that's not your expertise, because it's going to take you a lot longer to do it as compared to paying somebody to do it. I talk about that all the time, especially when people are first starting up their business. So many times, they don't go to an attorney to get stuff set up. They try to do it on their own. And then later on, when something happens with a partner or a contract or something like that, it ends up biting them in the butt and it costs 10 times as much to get it resolved.
Yep.
So that is something that's always, that's important there. When
One,
you're, go
oh,
ahead,
sorry. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say I can share with your listeners too. Like this is not like some heightened awareness state that I just like randomly stepped into. It's a function of all this trial and error myself.
Sure.
I was the guy that we were talking about this earlier before we started the recording.
Right,
Is I used to have a mindset that I'm not good enough, and so when I started Paradigm Shift, I knew that this was better for people, but I also didn't trust myself to run it.
mhm,
And so I brought on a partner who validated, like it was like a validation of like, okay, now that someone is on board with me, now I can do it. If they weren't on board with me, I didn't trust myself enough to do it. But what I did was I made a business partner out of someone who was better set as an employee.
sure.
And I did that because I needed permission. And that's an example of like, that's out of scarcity, right? I can't do this on my own. I need someone to be on my team with me versus I can do this. I have done this. And I'm going to add team members so that I can elevate.
Right,
A totally different frame of mind. And the last 6 years of being in business was difficult until we had a separation. And like you said, the separation was difficult because we didn't set it up with the mindset of that might happen when we
right.
first did the original documents. So there's a difference between knowing what to do. As a financial planner and advisor, I know what to do. And there's a difference between knowing what to do and then actually taking the actions. And
Yeah.
that's usually mindset.
Yeah, I think that, you talk about that, and a lot of people, may say, oh, well, oh, I didn't have that problem. I wasn't afraid to go out on my own. It's like you say that, but you are because of your pricing. And you're looking at, oh, well, I may not get this because I'm not going to be the cheapest one. So you lower your price to get the work. And then at
Hmm.
that point, that again is not having confidence in yourself. And I think that that's something that a lot of business owners make those mistakes, and that you have to, you really need to kind of set your price and stay with it. If not anything, increase it.
Yep.
Because, it you have to have the faith and you have to have the value in yourself before somebody else is going to have the value in you. So that's definitely something
It's
there.
beautiful. And it's another example. It's another example of looking at the want, don't want, right? Like, don't want to have, I don't want to have situations where I don't have sales. Okay, so I'm going to drop my prices to get more sales versus I want to tailor my services to high-end clientele,
Right. Right.
right? There's totally different mindsets there.
Yeah.
And if I don't want to not have sales, the first thing I'm going to think to do is make my prices more reasonable so more people can afford it. But you're creating a vicious cycle in that, and that's where you'll hear business owners get frustrated about being trapped in a low pricing cycle. They don't like the clients they work with. The clients that they currently work with are always complaining, even though they get it for cheap, or they get it for cheaper than than the business owner wants to offer it.
Right.
The business owner, they're still complaining about prices. Well, unfortunately, it's a tough pill to swallow, but we create that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. There's
the
no,
way out
no,
of it is to change it.
yeah, there's no doubt about that. And I think so much of it, in the pricing that you put out there, the fees you charge, whatever you want to call it, um, you know, if you're providing the service, the quality service, people are going to pay whatever you want to charge, because people want, and we talked about this a little bit earlier too. It's like, if somebody is coming to you and they're just want, it's all about, the price or the fees or whatever, you probably don't want to do business with them because
Right.
there's always going to be somebody out there that's willing to do it cheaper. And I look at it, fine, let them take it, let them be put out of business by this person because they don't want to pay the fees, or they're always complaining and you're discounting and doing stuff like that. So, um,
Yep.
kind of going back to I'm going to call it the mental state, the mental design of things. Is there another piece that you guys bring into it besides just the mental side of it?
Well, so besides the mental side is the actual academic science of designing an investment portfolio.
Hmm.
So, most like where I'm not special is that most financial advisors offer people a place or places to put their money as it's been earned. So, Roth IRA, or traditional IRA, 401k strategies, cash balance plans for business owners, right? Different unique things, or not unique things, but strategies. Most financial advisors can offer things like that. That's not, I would say, unique, but most financial advisors don't actually know any of the science of any of the strategies that they're offering. The dirty little secret of the financial industry is me and other, the traditional financial advisor, me at the old firm, and probably whoever most people are working with. They don't have the time. You got to think of, like, okay, think of them being a business owner.
Right.
They're trying to get new clients. They're trying to service existing clients. They're trying to learn about new product service offerings. They're trying to figure out how to make their products more sticky. They're trying to figure out their price points on certain, what fees they charge, what resources they offer, et cetera, et cetera. They're trying to figure out staffing and hiring. Odds are they're not spending the time, effort, or energy to learn about economic science around designing a portfolio. So what do? They go meet with wholesalers of different mutual funds, different ETFs, different commodities, different REITs. They go meet with these wholesalers, let the wholesaler tell them about the product, figure out which one they like the most, or which wholesaler they like the most. Sometimes it works that way too, if the wholesaler wines and dines them enough.
Right.
Come back and then offer that product to the client with the exact same spiel that the wholesaler gave them.
Hmm.
Well, that's the blind leading the blind at that point. The client's trusting the advisor's trusting the wholesaler's trusting the mutual fund or commodity company or whatever it is that told them what to do. And down the chain, no one knows what the hell's happening until it's too late, usually. That's when you see something happen where someone loses 70% of their money and they go to the advisor. What the hell happened? The advisor goes to the the wholesaler, what the hell happened? The wholesaler goes to what the hell happened?
Yeah.
And when you lose 70%, it's not the time to figure out if your person's got an actual strategy.
Right. It's
So,
it's almost like social media in the fact of, oh, hey, here's a snippet from an interview as compared to listening to the whole interview.
right.
And it's just like, okay, whatever the quick soundbite is type thing. Um, can you talk a little bit more about, the science and
Mhm.
how you use it to do what you do?
Yeah. Well, here's one of the first ones. It's probably easiest to understand. Most people talk about diversification, right?
Hmm.
Diversification, diversification. You got to diversify. And then when I ask them, well, what do they understand about diversification? Most people will say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's actually somewhat of a misunderstanding of modern portfolio theory. That's a misunderstanding of the science of investing.
Hmm.
It's not don't have all your eggs in one basket. It's don't have crappy eggs,
Hmm.
which means I would actually need to do some kind of analysis on the eggs to determine if they're crappy or not. If I'm operating out of don't have all my eggs in one basket, I can just put a ton of stuff in my basket
Right.
or a ton of different baskets, right? But if and what will end up happening usually is you'll have things in there that work against each other. And that defeats the whole purpose of the idea of diversification. Whereas if it's don't have crappy eggs, now I have to be intent on what I put into my strategy. I have to purposely exclude things that don't meet the bill, that are crappy eggs. How would I know if something's a crappy egg? One of the most important things to measure is risk return metrics,
Hmm.
right? So here's just a brief example of that. Gold, people think usually gold's a great diversifier. Well, if you look at the history of gold, gold has triple the volatility of the stock market with an expected return of about half. So it's got three times the money movements of the stock market with an expected return of half of the stock market. If I put that into my portfolio and I just added three times risk, half return, I made my portfolio worse, not better.
Right.
And
Right.
it's things like that about designing the portfolio. And I've seen, I think we talked a little bit about this briefly, but I've seen, probably the craziest case of this was I saw someone with about 25 different mutual funds in their portfolio telling me they were diversified. And so we did an under the hood dive at what do these mutual funds own?
Right.
And every single one of them, the top five stocks were Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and alphabet number A or B,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Right. So so the 25 funds and almost all of them have the same amount of money in the same stocks. They're all buying and selling them. They're probably buying and selling them and trading to each other.
Right.
So I'm paying all these fees for diversification when they all own the same stuff. And that's, and a financial advisor put that together for the client. That's an example of the importance of actually adhering to or knowing that there's some kind of science involved in the portfolio. Another great example of, let's call it a science, is most people don't know that there's actually a standardized return reporting system that exists in the world. It's called GIPS, Global Investment Performance Standards. It's a strategy or it's a calculation that if a company adheres to, let's say that there's company A and company B, and both of them adhered to a GIPS reviewed return system, you would actually be able to compare the returns of the two companies, the two investment strategies. But only 3% of the world actually adheres to the strategy. So most returns that people are told that they're getting are made up.
Hmm.
They're using some other kind of calculation metric, like an average or a geometric mean, but none of those are as valuable as a dollar weighted, time weighted, net of all expense return calculation, which is what a GIPS audit is. So the first thing I would do if I was a listener, I'd ask, I had money invested,
Yeah.
I'd ask my person, does my investment strategy have any GIPS reviewed returns or GIPS audit? And if they go, what does that mean? I'd probably do a second look.
Right. Can you tell us again what GIPS is?
Yeah, Global Investment Performance Standards, GIPS,
Okay.
GIPS.
Okay. I think
So
that,
that's an
yeah, I think
example.
that I think, you know, and again, many people are afraid to ask these questions of their professionals because they're afraid then the professional is going to say, well, you know, who have you been talking to? Or, you know, kind of, why are you cheating on me? You know,
Right.
type thing. And it's
Well,
like,
and
you know,
that needs to be dispelled.
right.
Like
Agreed.
Like think of a doctor, right? Imagine you had a heart doctor and you go, "Hey, so I was talking to this other heart doctor and he was suggesting that the surgery you're thinking to do it might not be beneficial. Here's what he was saying. What do you think?" If the doctor goes, "How dare you talk to another professional? My strategy is the best possible."
Right.
No one would take that from a doctor,
Right.
but you're going to take it from the guy making sure your financial life works or not? That's crazy.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. And I think that that's one of the things where it's people have to allow themselves. It's like, hey, you know, I want a second opinion or whatever. If you have the HVAC guy come into your house and say, hey man, you really need to replace this, and you haven't had any problems, and he's just there for the regular maintenance, are you going to rip out everything and put a new one in, or are you going to have somebody else come in and take a look? And I think that many times when people are using professionals, they're afraid to do that.
Yep,
And I think it's something that, you know, if us as professionals are doing our job properly, it's okay if somebody else wants to look.
exactly.
And again, maybe we learn something from it, um, you know, that we didn't know, because again, none of us know everything.
Well, and here's a really powerful way to look at it too. If I, as a professional, take it personally or get upset if a client starts exploring other options, what does that say about my confidence in my option?
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
Because if I'm confident in my option, client can go explore whatever they want to explore and it won't have an impact because they'll discover that my option's the best.
Right.
So the only reason I would have any kind of insecurity about that is because I don't even believe my strategy is the best.
Exactly. Could we go back full circle now back to the beginning of, okay, you know, we have to have confidence ourselves as business owners to be able to grow our businesses.
Yep.
So Tom, we've covered a lot of stuff. What have I not asked you you wish I had?
Again, man, it's a hell of a question, Gary. It's a hell of a question. Um, what have you not asked me that you wish you had? I'll tell you, I don't think that there's anything that you haven't asked me I wish that you did. I do wish we had more time just because I enjoy talking with you. I
Yeah.
know that there's a limit, but if you ever get to the point where you're doing 3-hour podcasts, let me know. I'd love to be
Yeah.
back. We can have a full on, like crazy, crazy chat about all this stuff.
Right. Right. Well, I certainly, appreciate your time, and appreciate, you sharing with us kind of what your philosophy is, on investing and working with people. Because I think that many of the listeners haven't had somebody, meet with them and talk with them, like how you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and that's a
So,
great question to leave your viewers with or your listeners with is, if they're working with someone, like if anything that I'm saying has them go, huh, I don't know about my guy. Huh, I don't know
right.
if my guy does that. Huh. One of the most effective questions that you could ask is, hey, I learned that there is some science around investing and I don't fully understand it. Can you teach me about it?
Hmm.
That way, number one, you're not disrupting the relationship because you're actually asking your current professional to teach you something. But number two, it'll give you clear insight. Like someone asked me that question, hell, we'll set some time aside and I can actually walk you through some of the complex scientific processes so that you know that I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But you ask someone else that question, they don't know, watch them squirm, and
Yeah.
that'll give you clarity as far as, okay, well, maybe my guy doesn't apply any kind of science to this.
Well, and I think you gave us with GIPS that's something that's important to ask them about and see if they even know what it is, for sure.
Yep.
So, Tom, if people like what they hear, how can they reach out to you? How can they learn more?
Well, if they want to just connect with me, like a buddy buddy chat kind of thing, social media is pretty awesome. Facebook's probably what I'm the most active on, so you can just search my name, Thomas Blottenberger, Blottenberger. And I'm willing to connect with anybody. I love having chats. Like you can question me, you can argue with me, disagree with me, ask me for more input. Like
Right.
I'm down for it all. I'm secure in my stand. And then if they're interested in actually exploring some of the working opportunities, probably one of the most powerful options we have is a 2-day session designed to all the things I just walked you through: mindset, behavior, the science of investing, actually discovering how this stuff works. We have a 2-day course called the American Dream Experience, designed to have someone walk in with no understanding of money or investing or even their own mindset and walk out able to question financial advisors and know more than them. It's really, really fun.
That's
It's
pretty
really
cool.
powerful. Yeah,
Right.
we had a lady, just a brief testimony about that. I had a lady I brought to one of our events not that long ago, and on day 2, she stood up at a microphone of 250 people and said, the whole time that I've been working with my person, I thought that this was just an area that I was too stupid to understand, that I just didn't get it and it didn't make sense. Now what I'm clear on is I'm not too stupid. This stuff actually can make sense, and my person just doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
And that was
Could be.
powerful.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
And
Definitely.
so that, if they want to learn more about that, they can go to paradigmshift.adxleader.com. So paradigmshift.a as in alpha, D as in delta, X as in X-ray, leader.com. And there's a tab in there called the American Dream Experience, so you can learn more about it.
Great. Tom, I really do appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, Gary. You're an awesome host.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Hey, this week our guest was Tom Blottenberger, and he is the CEO and founder of Paradigm Shift Financial. And I'll see you guys next week.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.